So I had two other videos I had just started working on, and I decided to put them on hold for this video. I very briefly, for a tiny second, considered talking about the Redfall 30 frames per second conversation, and then I decided against it. Then this interview happened, and I just could not ignore it. I have to add my 2 cents. But due to major topics such as this being overly saturated, I decided I would have to bring up parts of the conversation that were a little glossed over. I feel being someone who plays and enjoys all consoles, it would be nice to add some nuance to the conversation. Nonetheless, we are about to enter into this absolute train wreck. If you're new here, I cover anime and gaming news. I also do reviews on both subjects. Sometimes we even cover anime conventions. If that sounds remotely intriguing to you, please consider subscribing. We have a lot to talk about, so let's get started. So before we start, I want to acknowledge that the structure of this video will be very different from my usual videos. I'm going to show you clips of the interview and then provide my commentary. While Phil's statements can be misinterpreted, there are other times I feel people are being a little disingenuous and trying to pretend they don't know what he is talking about. And lastly, I do want to add that people are not giving this interview the credit it deserves. People are mainly focusing on one section of the interview, but damn, the questions these gentlemen asked were on the money. They asked some hard-hitting questions in a very respectful way. If you're a gamer that is curious about this side of the industry, I highly encourage you to watch it. Just a heads up, the whole CMA blockage is not something I will be talking about in this video. I don't believe there is any held contention towards Microsoft on the acquisition block. In fact, I would say most people are shocked it was blocked. In this section, Phil Spencer kinda counters the discussion on Redfall needing more time. Now to be clear, he does acknowledge the bugs, performance issues, but he is specifically responding to people who think this game needed several more months of work and it would have been better.
There are quality issues and we're working on those, but I think there's a fundamental piece of feedback that we get that the game isn't realizing the creative vision that it had for its players. That doesn't feel like a, hey, just delay it. That feels like the game had a goal to do one thing, and when players are actually playing, they're not feeling that thing. They're not feeling the creative execution of the team.
Spencer very articulately explains that the vision of this game would have been the same. There is clearly something with the game's overall design and mechanics that is not resonating with most people. No amount of time would have fixed that unless they just cut their losses and started from scratch. You can make a game run at 60 frames per second with no bugs, but that doesn't mean a mediocre game jumps to being Game of the Year status. I also want to add that I wonder if things would have been different if this wasn't advertised as a AAA Xbox exclusive. Because let's be honest, it was in fact advertised as this big release, and they gave a lot of time to lengthy trailers and dev sit-downs. I don't know, this could have been one of those moments where there wasn't much that could have been done to change this outcome. I mean, they could have shelved it, but it would have been a scalebound situation all over again. People would have been upset that Microsoft canceled another exclusive, and they're like, and they need more exclusives, so why did they cancel this one? So anyways, let's continue. Shortly after this, he states that he is not in the business of telling devs to only make the games they are good at. He wants them to try new things and not just be pigeonholed into a certain type of game. This is an area of the interview I hear very few YouTubers talk about. He acknowledges that because he has this belief, this means sometimes you are going to make a 6 out of 10. It's going to happen. I have no idea why, but some people believe that this is Phil Spencer accepting mediocrity when it's not. Why can't this just be a story of a dev's vision just not being fully realized? Why does this have to be a story of them being forced to make a game they didn't want to make? Regardless, I have to give Phil points on this one. He gave a very calculated response that shows he respects game devs.
But one thing I won't do is push against creative aspirations of our teams. Then a lot of people will say, hey, you've got teams know how to do one kind of game. Just force them to go do the one kind of game that they have a proven track record for. And I'm just not a believer in that. Maybe that means I'll under-deliver for some of our fans out there, but when a team like Rare wants to do Sea of Thieves, when a team like Obsidian wants to do Grounded, when Tango wants to go do Hi-Fi, when everybody probably thought they were doing Evil Within 3, I want to give the teams the creative platform to go and push their ability, push their aspirations. But I also need to have a great selection of games that are continue to come that surprise and delight our fans.
Maybe some Sony platform warriors out there right now crowing about the fact that Redfall has underperformed. I just want to point this out as a creative. Every time somebody takes a big bet, especially a big AAA bet on an original idea, a new IP, and it fails, everybody suffers. It's bad for everybody because it makes it that much harder for the Phils and the Jim Ryans of the world, the big, the creative, the decision makers, to take a chance on them. Oh, but the last time we did that, it didn't work. Like maybe let's just make a sequel to the next thing, or let the algorithm tell us what to do.
Here's a section of the interview I have not seen any of the big YouTubers talk about. This man, Gary Whitta, quickly slipped in a side comment about some people celebrating this failure. I'm not going to say names because that is not what I am about or what I want this channel to be like, but there have been a few people, big people, who have tried to feign ignorance and act as if people don't have favorites. Yes, there are people that are so immature that they are still invested in the console war tomfoolery. Granted, I did this in the Sega vs. Nintendo days, but I was in elementary and middle school. That's part of the course for that age. But yes, there are grown men wanting the other side to fail badly, to be miserable. And I'll be honest, it can happen on both sides, but let's not pretend that this is not happening. That's just ridiculous. More importantly, Gary Whitta said something that was profound, which was, when a new IP fails, we all lose. And he is so right. Some of us don't want to play another sequel of the latest AAA game. Some of us want to try new ideas and new concepts, not just old IPs mixed with new ideas. Let's take away the console war aspect of this conversation. There are some gamers that absolutely hate EA. Some people think one of their IPs failing means they will learn their lesson or not make a game like that again. I agree with what this man is saying. It makes companies less apprehensive on trying something new. Just so no one misinterprets what I'm saying here, I am not implying the consumer needs to support bad or mediocre games, but I am saying celebrating failures is wrong and it doesn't teach them a lesson in the way you're thinking. It makes them think twice on trying something new.
On the score, yeah, we do mock reviews for every game that we launch, and this is like double digits lower than we thought we would be with this game through our mock reviews. And that's what's one of the disappointing things. Like we would never strive to launch a game that we thought was going to review in the low 60s. It's not part of our goals.
I don't have too much to say about the mock review section. This is a little out of my realm of knowledge, but my understanding has been that these type of reviews are done by an independent entity and not the company's employees. Did the people who participate really drop the ball or fluff the score up a little bit? I don't know. If I were to be honest, I really don't care for this part of the Redfall's history or lore. It wouldn't have fixed the issues, that's the bottom line. They would have just known sooner that the game may not be a winner. In this section, Paris Lilly puts on his gaming community cape and swoops in. And I really mean that. He brought up multiple concerns the community has had in regards to exclusives. In this segment, Phil Spencer was honest and acknowledged that they did not meet the 12-month plan promised to fans last year.
Obviously, today you announced the Xbox Game Showcase, which will be happening this June. And obviously, there's going to be a lot of new reveals and surprises that come out of that, which is great. But I am going to bring it back again to another common theme that I do hear through the community. And I've actually said this to you in the past, but it's about communication coming from Xbox. I do feel back in 2021, you did a fantastic job with communication, which arguably has been the best year during this current generation of Xbox. Obviously, we know that 2022 was a light year for Xbox as far as releasing titles. Now, last year, during the showcase, you had the 12-month plan. You didn't necessarily deliver on all the games coming.
No, we didn't deliver. It's not no necessarily. We didn't deliver.
So this is a very interesting segment. Redfall was much further along in development, so they let them be and focused on Starfield. For the most part, I believe this, but I would also say it's pretty obvious that between these two games, which one would garner more attention. Regardless, at least he admitted that they should have checked in on the progress a bit more.
People don't have to care about this, but I'll talk about it. When we acquire studios, there's games that are in development when we acquire a studio, and then there's things that are either really early in development or not even conceived yet. And I think we need to improve on engaging in games that are midway through production when they become part of Xbox. I do think there's a different expectation for a game and even a team when you've been third party and all of a sudden you become part of first party. There's a different expectation in terms of how you're going to perform on our console.
I'm going to rattle off a couple quick ones with you, Phil. Of course, we talk about 60 frames, 30 frames. Should Xbox players expect a clear message this summer with Starfield with 30 and 60 frames? That's a big lesson learned, as you brought up. Should we expect that answer? It's clear as day?
Yeah.
I really appreciate that this question was asked. Clearly, the people have spoken and they want 60 frames per second to be the standard. All they can do is be honest and transparent about this. I would just bear in mind that Todd Howard interview on Lex Friedman. I could see them offering a 60 frames per second mode with the resolution and effects cut back, but I wouldn't be shocked if they are favoring the 4K 30 frames per second mode. This next section is where I think you can feel Spencer's frustration spilling over a bit. So this isn't as bad as the following section. Saying you can't out-console Sony gave people the impression there is no way for MS to ever beat Nintendo or Sony. And I say the term beat rather loosely. He kind of cleans this up a bit, referring back to Paris Lilly's statement on Microsoft having a different goal and vision, but he probably should have just stopped at their goals being different and they are not trying to outsell consoles.
You see a lot of conversation, of course. I want to praise you and the team for really elevating the PC side of this Xbox ecosystem. I think we've seen a lot of great strides in that. But when you see the community talk about the console side of things, do you think you've lost the focus or maybe put too much onto the PC side? Do you think that the console is still getting the console love that it deserves, whether it be the homepage update, achievements, of course, looking forward and using the power of this next gen? Do you think you guys have lost that focus, or is it still there, and can we see more love on that side?
Well, we'll definitely continue to focus on making our console experience as great as it can be. I like the homepage refresh and some stuff. I will say, this might be disruptive as well. We have a different vision. You know, Paris talked about this. It's play the games you want with the people you want anywhere you want. We want Xbox to be something that people who buy our console can feel like they're a member of. Obviously, who are playing on PC, who are playing on cloud, that they feel like they're full members of our ecosystem. Game Pass players can play on many different devices, and we remain fully committed to that. We're not in the business of out-consoling Sony or out-consoling Nintendo. There isn't really a great solution or win for us. And I know that will upset a ton of people. Our vision is that everybody who's on console has to feel like they have a great experience and they're a first-class citizen. They've invested a ton in our platform. But we are not in a position, and I see it out there, I see commentary that if you just build great games, everything would turn around. It's just not true that if we go off and build great games, all of a sudden you're going to see console share shift in some dramatic way. We lost the worst generation to lose in the Xbox One generation, where everybody built their digital library of games.
I wanted people to hear this part because it gave me a different perspective on where Phil is at. So after I heard this guy's question the second time, I realized Phil Spencer ad-libbed a little there. And by that I mean the most controversial section of this interview is the part mentioning great games and it doesn't matter how well Starfield does. If you listen to the question, that last section of Phil's response was totally unnecessary. He didn't have to say it. So this must have been something that was eating at him for a while. Despite me wishing it was never said, there are parts where I agree with him. I keep hearing people mistaking these statements as giving up or having a loser mentality. I think he phrased parts of this in a weird way, or should have went a little further in depth. I think he accepts the fact that the guy that has been purchasing PlayStations for years is not going to all of a sudden jump ship because of Starfield. Some goofy YouTubers are saying, if you have a PlayStation 5, why sell it? Makes no sense. Just own both systems, bruh. Duh. Why are these people so dense? Maybe because some people can't afford to own multiple consoles. Video games are a luxury, and not everyone can afford an expensive gaming rig. Not everyone can afford a $500 console. So they have to make a cost-efficient decision. I am extremely grateful that I can afford these expensive toys, but that is not the case for everyone. I even know some people that wait till the very end of a generation to purchase consoles so they can get them and the games they want cheap. Anyways, I think his words could have been better, but I understood the point he was trying to make. In conclusion, I personally am glad that Phil Spencer came and did this interview. Did this help the Redfall or Xbox exclusive conversation? Maybe it didn't. I see a lot of positive comments from Xbox fans, and I even see some PlayStation fans saying they respect Phil for coming out and talking about everything. But there is a lot, and I mean a lot of people dunking on Phil right now. Tons of armchair corporation execs saying he should be fired and he has a loser mentality. It's hard to distinguish if the majority of people approve of this or they disapprove. It could be 50-50, but at the end of the day, I think this only matters most to the Xbox community as a whole. It matters how they feel about the interview. In this interview, Phil Spencer sounds completely dejected at times. Is he being sincere and genuine? I think he is. I think most people at least understand that he is one of the few big execs that will come on a podcast or a stream and answer tough questions. That is even why I am partially making this video. I respect that a lot. But here is the one area I agree with most people. When it comes to first-party exclusives, Xbox is 100% lacking in that department. We are getting to the point where people are restless. No more apologies. No more waiting. We want the exclusives. This is one of the areas where I agree it's fair to criticize Microsoft. Even someone like me that mainly plays third-party games, I still get this. Some people say the exclusives are like the most important area to succeed in. Microsoft has made great systems in regards to the Series S and the Series X. Backwards compatibility and FPS boost to old games is a way to entice people to buy the systems. Quick resume is a very handy feature. And we may not be quite there now, but xCloud is clearly the future and it is very impressive. Game Pass is such a great value for the consumer. But we all know how this works. The people like having exclusives. I will be honest and say I play probably a quarter of Sony and Nintendo exclusives. I am mainly there for the niche Japanese titles. But the people want what they want. They want a reason besides all the things I mentioned to own an Xbox. That reason has to be an exclusive that they can't find anywhere else. I think Arcane can recover from this, but a lot of people are claiming that poor little Arcane was forced to make a game they never wanted to. If that is true, that would mean Bethesda pressured them to make it because it was in development before the acquisition. Also, Redfall does kind of mirror the Fallout 76 situation, so I can see how people are making that correlation. But if I were to be completely honest, I think people need to accept that Arcane made a very hollow game. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for me. Please share your thoughts, your opinions down in the comment section. Let me know where you stand on this hot topic. If you think I'm an Xbox, let me know. If you think I'm a Sony pony, please let me know. I just wanted to add my take on this situation because I think some people are only watching the sound bites and making a video based off of that. So I wanted to do a little deeper of a dive than a lot of other people are doing. I honestly could have went longer, but you know, you guys got some cool anime and games to play, so let you get into that and have some more fun. Anyways, thank you for watching the video to the very end, and I will see you next time.